Welcome back. So the last thing I wanted to really cover was how groups of objects work and how to work with objects that need grouping. So I'm going to zap all this stuff away for now. I don't need it. And what I'm going to do is just deal with my UFO right here. So if I go ahead and take my UFO, and if I go back to my positioning here, so I can zero this out pretty easily by just going back to translate and saying 0, 0, 0, and bring it back to the origin, right? So now if I wanted to make, say, some lights on this spaceship, there's a number of ways I could do it. So let's give it a crazy material. I'm just going to create like a Fong E here, and I'm going to give it like a nasty looking 1950s aqua greenish, space age color. And so let's go ahead and put that on the object. Okay. So I'm just doing this so I can differentiate it from what I'm about to do, which is to add more things on there. So let me go ahead and render that. So you notice the Arnold render doesn't show anything because I don't have any lights. So if you use just the Maya software, and it's not as good as Arnold, but we do have to design specific shaders and other things like that for Arnold. So right now for Learning 6, we're just going to go into the Maya software and go ahead and render that out. So it'll just use default lighting. I don't have any lighting in this scene right now. But let's go ahead and add some ornaments to this. So let's add some lights, for example. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a NURBS sphere. And we can't see it. It always plops it right in the middle of the scene here. So I'm going to go ahead and move that guy up a little bit. I'm going to scale him down. And let's give him a crazy color. So I'm just going to make this like it's a light bulb on the surface of the UFO. You can spin it around there and see a little bit. So this is where you might want to start using your different views. But let's go ahead and say create material, and we'll make another Fong E. And I'll just make this like a bright pink. I'm going to make some very offensive colors here. So pay attention, please. Let me offend you with hideous colors. All right. So then you can also, if you want to make it more like a light, you can raise the ambient or the incandescence to make it really look like a light source, and then kind of just drop that on there. Okay. So there I have a little light bulb, and it's sitting on the surface. Now, in order to make an instance of these, I'm going to want to rotate them around the center of the scene here. So there's a couple ways to do that. I'm going to show you the easiest way right now, is just to create a group. So if you go into edit and you say group, it's going to create a group now in the center of the scene at the absolute 0. So right now, if you don't have your outliner open, just go ahead and go to Window, Outliner, and you'll see this scene here. So if I call this group, just say, let's say I call it light. Right. If I look in there, this is what's called a node. Okay, so if we drop down that little plus symbol there, we'll see that there is the NURBS geometry inside of this node. But this node is basically nothing. It's an empty container that's like a group. You can also see this if you go to your Window, General Editors, and you go to the hypergraph. So with the hypergraph, you're seeing it more in this this nodal mode. So you can see there's the light and there's the sphere. But what we want to do is basically be able to duplicate this. So if we go ahead and say duplicate, and then we rotate it, we might have to rotate it manually. And let's see, I didn't quite duplicate it. So let's go to edit, duplicate, and let's see. So there. See, I made another copy of it, but I'd have to do this many times. But there's a way to do this, and of course I can do it more precisely by saying, okay, I want a certain number of lights here, and let's just say I want to rotate this. So if I wanted 4 lights, I'd say 90, right? Because 90 times 4 will be 360. But if I wanted to do 8 of them, I'd say 45, right? And so, this is not really, I don't have to do it this in such a slow manner. So I'm going to go back to my object here, and rather than saying edit duplicate, I will say duplicate special. And so I'm going to drag open this option here. And so when I drag open the option, whenever you see that little square, that's where you can tell it the number of copies. So let's say that I wanted to do, I don't know, like 16 copies, right? So so you can do the math, right? So you do the math and say, okay, if I want 16, or let's say I want to do 18, right? So let's say I do 18 copies, or really 17. I want to make 17 more copies of this one, and then I'm going to want to rotate them a certain amount. So if I want to rotate them, I want to rotate them around the y-axis here. So this is a scale, and you can do any of these things, right? You can do any of these different versions of the object. So when we say rotate, we'll give it that number of copies. So let's say if I wanted to do 18 of them, including the one I've selected, I'm adding 17 more. So then I would just do the math, right? So I would say, like, okay, I can do 20 of those. I would rotate it 20 degrees to get 18 copies, right? So I'll say apply, and voila. And so now I have all these individual lights, right? There's my original light. Here's all my other ones. And so I probably want to group those. So this whole point of this is that I'm trying to show you how to do groups. So I can select all these lights, and then I can say edit group. Okay, so now I have a group of lights, and within those lights, they're sort of all parented. So when you create a group, it just kind of creates an empty node on top of everything. And then there's another way to use groups, which is to parent objects. So let's just say I call this light group. What I can do with this then is select those lights, and then using my marquee, I'll shift select to where I want them to be, the object I want them to be underneath. So I shift select this guy here, and I haven't given him a name yet. Maybe I should give him a name first. So let's just select him, and we'll just call him UFO. And so we'll shift select these guys. So we'll select them first and then the object. And when I hit the letter P, or if I go to edit and then I say parent, now you'll see in the hierarchy of UFO I have lights underneath. So instead of an empty node on top, I actually have the UFO on top. So if I use my hierarchy mode, I'm going to select the whole group. If I use my object mode, I can select an individual light, but I can't select the UFO because it is in the top group. So if I wanted to select that separately, I would have to put that in a separate group. So, if I hit the down arrow, it will select it without the group. Okay. Now, if you can use these arrows to go up and down through hierarchy. So if I select the light, then I can go up and select again to the group. So it went from the light to the light group to the entire group of lights. And if I hit the up arrow one more time, you'll see it goes to the up to the UFO here. So that's kind of how you can navigate through the hierarchy. If you don't have these windows open, you can just kind of go up and down through the hierarchies that way. You notice I can't go back down. I can only go down from the top one. So if I have the UFO group and I want to just select the UFO, it will go down to just the NURBS without selecting the entire group.